Welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession podcast. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here at Fall Obsession Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I am here this week with Gray Schneider. He's my guest, and he is the first guest on the podcast that actually gets to sit here and hang out with me while I do the intro. So we're gonna get Gray on the show here in just a minute with you guys, and you'll get to hear his story and the project that he's working on called S.O.S. Season of Stories. Working on, and I'm not even going to do it justice in a few minutes and everything, but it is a incredible project starting in the hunting and outdoors that is going to benefit first responders in the form of health and cancer screenings, which is an incredible, incredible mission. Again, I'm saving it for the podcast. We'll get into all that in a second. You guys keep listening. Before we get there, I'm going to give our sponsors a quick shout out. Hoot Camo is the flagship sponsor for Fall Obsession Podcast. I started rocking Hoot gear last year on a hunt in Colorado, and the gear held up phenomenally. Can't say enough about it. Just the durability, the warmth, the quality, the versatility of the pattern, it's all there. And the best thing is it's at a price point for the blue-collar hunter and outdoorsman. So head on over to hootcamo.com, check out everything they got right there. And even if you're not going to get into a brand new full set of camo, they got fishing gear, lifestyle gear, golf gear. They got all sorts of stuff on there for you guys. They're recently in Shields down here in Texas, which is awesome to see them hanging out in there. So hootcamo.com, and if you use the code FallObsession15, that will save you guys some money at checkout. So go check them out and see everything they have to offer. Elite Archery is another podcast partner. I've been rocking an Elite bow for many, many years now. No plans of changing that. Got a new one on the way and can't wait to get that ethos in my hands. So I can sit up here and talk to you guys about how great Elite Archery is and how much I love their bows, but the ultimate test is for you guys to go shoot one. So go to your local Elite dealer, get one in your hands, and see what you think. Compare it to your bow, compare it to other bows you might be thinking about. And even if you haven't shot an Elite in a long time, you might say, man, I shot one a long time ago. Didn't really care for it. Technology and the archery industry changes extremely quickly, and Elite has taken full advantage of that. They're not the same bows that you might remember from 10 years ago or whatnot. So Elite Archery, go take the Elite Shootability Challenge today at your local dealer. The Outdoor Call Radio app is another podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession podcast on there on Mondays, same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. Go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today. It's free. You can start streaming immediately. And follow Outdoors Dan and his pages on social media because he does some live radio shows throughout the week at local Midwestern radio stations and shares those broadcasts on his Facebook Live. Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call Radio app. Go check him out. Last but not least, Ridge Rock Hunt Company is another podcast partner. If you are looking to book a hunt with a vetted and trusted outfitter somewhere in the United States, give Derek Eves a call. He will work with you on all the details to find something that's right for you. Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Go check him out. Appreciate you guys tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. Be sure that you have liked and followed us on all the social media platforms. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you haven't checked out our shows yet on Carbon TV, please go do so. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series, Couch Chat, streams on there. Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset are our two hunting shows that are on there. Go check out what we got on Carbon TV. Head on over to the website, fallobsession.com. See everything that we got going on over there. Pick up a hat and a shirt if you're so inclined. And above all else, like, share, and get this content out there to the masses. That is the best and easiest way that you can help support Fall Obsession and all of our guests and everybody that we have on our shows every single week. So be sure that you are following Fall Obsession on social media, and we appreciate the support. With that, we're going to hit the intro, and then we're going to our conversation with Gray. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession podcast. My name is Sam, hosting you guys. My guest this week is Gray Schneider. Welcome to the podcast, Gray.
Thank you for having me on. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. I've been excited for this one. You and I, we haven't known each other very long, but we've gotten to know each other very well, very quick, or so it
Yes.
seems.
Yes.
And primarily and first and foremost, that's through a mutual connection that we have.
Mm-hmm.
A fellow firefighter to me,
Yep.
brother-in-law to you. His name's
Correct.
Wade Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
And you are currently building something, a project that, I don't know, I have two worlds here, right? I have firefighting and hunting are my two realms that I dwell in most of my time, that is.
Yeah.
And your project that you're working on is a bridge between those two. And I personally, as you know, I find a lot of value and passion in that. But I want to start us off, and to break the ice on our conversation, introduce yourself and tell our listeners who Wade Cannon is.
So Wade Cannon, I did not get a lifetime of getting to know him. I met him in. There's two different ways to kind of talk about it, because I almost met him one time whenever I came into the DFW area to visit his sister. I purposely had an extra long layover so that I could spend or trick her into spending some time with me, because that's actually how we met. We met, my wife Jess and we met at an airport bar of all places, in Dallas Love. We are that kind of weird, awesome story that people talk about. And so our kind of courtship really didn't start taking place until around 2019, but we'd known each other for a couple years. And then I came to see her in kind of the middle of 2019, and apparently the day that I came to see her was the day that Wade was taking out his boat for one of the first times, and he was super, super proud of this boat. But I always joke with Jess and joked with Wade that the first time that we should have met, he technically kicked me out of the state because I didn't have anywhere else to go. I was gonna just stop in and spend some time with Jess, and then he was like, "No, we're not gonna let Gray come out on the boat this time." And I was like, "Okay, I have this first impression of Wade that is he's definitely the big brother, you know."
Yeah.
Well, kind of fast forward, and I actually am about to move out here, and I finally meet Wade, and we not necessarily hit it off, but it was really developing kind of him to be my future brother-in-law. And I think everybody at the time saw it, that I loved Jess with all of my heart, and they're like, all right, let's just see what happens. And fast forward a couple years, and I proposed to her in September of 2020, and at the end of that month is when Wade was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer.
And how old was he?
He was 31 years old.
31.
Yes.
31 years old, a firefighter, and perfectly healthy, right? Fit, healthy, wouldn't expect it.
By all who knew him and all outward appearance, he was, some would say, jacked. He was a big guy, all muscle. I mean, he would definitely kind of, if you didn't know him, he could be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
and he made his presence known, and
in a good way.
Yes.
In a good way.
Yes, absolutely. And you could tell a lot about that by, he moved that weight around to force people to love him. And there's a lot of good stories that talk about him being able to do that.
Yeah. So I want you to share with us, and I know we're going to get into it and we're going to talk about all the details of it, but I guess before we get to that, to finish Wade's story. So Wade is diagnosed with this in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
September of 2020, if I recall.
It's like the last couple days of September of 2020.
Yeah. So stage 4 colon cancer, which for a firefighter is in the state of Texas, it's a presumptive cancer, meaning that if you get colon cancer, it's automatically presumed that it's job related. Yeah. So at that point, Wade starts fighting a battle that's not easy, but I dare to say Wade made it look easy. He was I can't think of a person who was more positive and upbeat and motivated through a fight like that than Wade.
There was a couple battles. It took me a second to kind of piece that together, because and we'll get into one of them, but yes, the personal battle with cancer. He was so healthy that the doctors felt that he could handle a much more aggressive version and time frame of the chemotherapy. At the beginning, they said, that they were intending it to be 10 to 12 rounds of chemo. Ultimately, it was, I think, 23 or 24.
That was a lot.
I've never heard of anybody going through that many rounds of chemo. That's
incredible.
And I mean, it is poison. And anybody that's gone through that, they can tell you that that's exactly what you're doing. I kind of touched base on just one of the wildest parts about it was, he had this dog, River, and River and him were super, super close. But every time he would get back from the hospital from his treatment, she would not want to come near him. And they finally figured it out that it was the poison was seeping out of his pores. And she was like, she could sense it and didn't want to be anywhere near him. And it would take a couple days for it to kind of work its way through before she'd come back over. But he fought and fought and fought. He tried to find every single way, whether it was utilizing chemotherapy, specific diets. He had a couple surgeries. And that was kind of ultimately what opened up. He started with his colonoscopy that he'd fought to get for about 4 or 5 months, and then ended up having to pay a pretty good amount of money to get in there. But ultimately, I believe that they were able to get a lot of it covered, but he had to fight just to get the colonoscopy.
Yeah, because I mean he's 31 years old,
yeah.
and to your point, no doctor and to your normal human being, they're gonna look at that like, no, there's no way, right? Or not that there's no way, but it's highly unlikely that we're gonna see something like this in somebody this young, and that's a little bit of that's almost false, because right now they're seeing that colon cancer is affecting younger and younger people, but those rules, those guidelines, and it comes down to one of two things. You have to either have a familial background, or you have to have hit a certain age threshold. Right.
And if you can't do one of the two, then you're either forced to pay out of pocket, or you just go without. I mean, it's most of the time for a colonoscopy, it's very, very easy procedure. There's a couple ways to do it. They can either knock you out or they can kind of gas you. It takes about 15 minutes or so of total procedure time. And really, it's not terribly invasive. There's a whole lot of stigma to it in ways, but an actual colonoscopy can find polyps, cancerous polyps, and catch them in time to be able to save lives.
Yeah.
And they were saying that the polyps and the cancer had started growing whenever he was 28 or 29. And so it's hard to say if they would have caught it whenever he first went in with symptoms. It's
speculation. I get that. And I'm not trying to, I wouldn't trying to misspeak by saying it's unlikely for somebody his age. I understand that they're finding it in younger and younger people. It's just, to your point, there's still criteria that doctors typically look at to, recommend that sort of not procedure, but that screening for an individual. So,
and there's other ways too. There are at-home tests. They're not as accurate because it's a fecal test,
right?
And I guess the primary company that provides that is Cologuard, but that also does require an age threshold for it to be covered by your insurance. And if it isn't covered by your insurance, I've heard that it could be up to the $1,000 mark, just if you're paying straight out of pocket.
So as Wade's going through this, what and I know that I know the answer, but for our listeners, for those tuning in, probably a lot that are completely unfamiliar with these sort of risks that first responders face potentially. What's the message that Wade was preaching through all this?
Just get checked. Just he'd even coined this awesome thing, just check your rear.
Yeah.
But I think that the checks that he was advocating for, yes, a lot of it was about colonoscopy and colorectal examinations, but additionally it was about more comprehensive health screenings for first responders, specifically because of what they're exposed to.
Yeah.
And I mean, of all people, you know exactly what that is, and that the risks. He knew the risks, and the last thing that he would want to do is not he didn't think about those risks necessarily every time he put his gear, his bunker
nobody
gear
does.
Nobody
right?
does.
The tones go off in the station. We're excited for whatever call we're rolling on.
Yeah.
Unless it's I stubbed my toe at 3 a.m. Maybe not as excited for those, but we're putting on our gear. We're going on these fires and everything, and we're excited to do our jobs. This is what we signed up for, and not to make light out of somebody's bad day, because it is a sad day when somebody loses their home or something like that. But at the same time, it's what we train for, right? So it's that kind of stuff is typically out of our minds when we're responding to those calls and everything. I will say in recent years, especially with the focus on cancer and first responders and everything, when you're overhauling, after the fire's out, but you're putting out hot spots, you're walking through the debris and everything, there is a lot more of a conscious mindset to be on air, breathing through your SCBA, your air pack, and taking those initiatives on scene. But and coming back to the station, more and more fire departments are getting their guys 2 sets of bunker gear, which is great, so that we don't have to finish a shift or a tour wearing the same dirty set of bunker gear that we just fought fire in that has carcinogens and all sorts of stuff built up in it. The stuff comes right off the rig. It gets broken down. It gets washed immediately. We get into a clean, fresh set. A lot of departments have precautions to where we're taking showers. Like, you don't go back into service until your gear has been broken down in the extractor, your tools are clean, and you're clean. You've taken a shower and washed yourself. So we are seeing a heightened awareness through all that. But again, to your point, that's a long response. But to your point, it's not at the front of our mind when the tones go off.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember a lot of conversations with Wade and the Cannons where it did, it's just like you're saying, and not to make light of people going through horrific and terrifying situations, but it is exciting for firefighters. It is what gets their blood pumping. They want to get out there. They want to make a difference. They are heroes. That's what gets, it's what drives them.
Yeah.
And so seeing that and seeing how hard Wade worked to get his screening, he made it his mission to try and help other firefighters get screening. And earlier on, it was really with an emphasis on the colorectal. And ultimately, through what Wade was going through, Chief Henley implemented some procedural changes and some yearly screening that was a bit more comprehensive than they were used to.
Yeah, completely changed the process for our annual health screenings, which in a good way, for a more thorough examination for sure.
So with the change, is it okay if I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we didn't bridge the gap at the beginning for people who may be unaware, like the agency, the fire department that I work for is the same fire department Wade worked for. So
Yes.
that's where my connection with Wade is common in this
Absolutely.
sense. So
And so through Chief Henley's implementation of that new company, that new organization that they brought in, what would you say? Do you feel just a greater sense of relief when you get out of your yearly physical, your yearly exam through that organization? And like, does it allows you to sleep well at night rather than worry?
absolutely, 100% agree with that. It's for some guys that are, and I mean, it's for everybody to some extent. You always wonder, right? Are they going to find something out of the blue? So to have that peace of mind is, yes, it does make you sleep better at night and everything. And then one thing that I make a point doing, I encourage other firefighters to do is, your insurance does allow, or most cases I feel like should allow for you to go out to your own primary care and get a physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, we get all of our annual testing through the fire department done, in the December-January window.
Mm-hmm.
So normally around this time, I actually have it coming in a couple of weeks. I go to my primary and I have them do a physical and a full blood panel and all that kind of stuff at roughly the 6-month mark. That way, I'm not waiting a full year potentially before they find something that might have popped up,
Would you say that your firefighter brothers, all of them do the same thing?
I will say since Wade, a lot more do. Not, I can't say that everybody does it, and not everybody might not need to or feel like they need to, but a lot more people are doing that, and that's good.
And with that, not only are they finding that you're healthy, but they did find through some other screening that some other members did find some things.
Yes, and Wade, as you know, spoke very openly about that, about how that was his hope through his battle and everything, that he would inspire others to check your rear, to go get checked, and to make sure that they have a clean bill of health. And there, we did a video for him at kind of, I think it was roughly the halfway point through all of his fight and everything, and we interviewed him on that video, and he talked about it. He talked about how, there's been guys who have reached out to him or the family or whoever and have said, hey, I found polyps, or I found that I had a stage 2 cancer, or whatever it might be, and they were able to get ahead of it. Or he even said in the video, people also just found out that they were perfectly healthy and they have nothing to worry about and they have peace of mind now, and again, that's the important thing, that people have that peace of mind, or people catch it early and can get ahead of it. especially in the first responder community. There's plenty of it's applicable to plenty of other industries out there that deal with toxins or chemicals, whatever the case might be. I know the focus with this podcast is on firefighting, but there's a ton of other industries out there that could benefit from hearing this too. So
absolutely. And so one of the things that I kind of want to make clear is that based on what I found out is Flower Mound is ahead of the curve on this.
We certainly would like to think so, and I believe that we are in many regards.
And that is amazingly commendable. And what it does is it allows for a baseline to be able to go out and share with other departments the absolutely vital need to get the same type of screening. And to go a little bit into what you guys go through as far as that screening is concerned, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a full blood panel that's included in that. That's kind of step one. They do
paint the picture of kind of how the whole thing takes place.
Okay. I'm not sure quite what you mean.
No. Like, is it a truck that pulls up? Or are you doing this in a...
No,
do you go someplace to
do
this?
So typically they send us a couple weeks before we're scheduled for like our physical and the more in-depth testing when the third party actually comes to our department to do all this. A couple weeks before, you got to schedule and set up to go to one of the little clinics or something that's local that can draw blood basically, and you get your blood panel drawn, and they send that stuff off to be analyzed and do their thing with that. And then you come in for your physical. They do a hands-on examination just like a normal physical. For cancer screenings, they do ultrasounds all over the body, different organs, different body parts and everything, with the ultrasound checking for any abnormalities that they might come across. For the cardiovascular side of everything, they do a cardiac stress test, like you're getting on a bike and you're riding for so long hooked up to an EKG, and they're monitoring your heart rate and everything like that. You have sit-downs with physicians within the network and everything to go over your familial history and your meds and any conditions that are pre-existing, whatever they might be. They do the vision test, hearing test. It is all inclusive and thorough in that regard. And then after you go through all that, they have a conclusion visit. Like a week later, you come back in to meet with another physician that has all the results from everything compiled, to basically say, hey, you're healthy. This, I know they put like scores and numbers to stuff, obviously, and firemen make it a competition, of course. But hey, you're healthy. You're fit for duty. You're good. Or hey, we found these things. Are you aware of this? You should follow up with your primary care or specialist, whatever it might be, because we found X, Y, Z. Or anywhere in between, whatever it might be. So that's kind of a.
How long does the really comprehensive part? How long does that process take?
I mean, you're in there for, I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what they're finding, and stuff, and also how backed up they are. Sometimes, if the guy in front of you has a longer laundry list of medications, maybe you're in there a little bit longer waiting, or whatever the case might be. It's not a super long and strenuous process, but they're thorough. And everything is checked.
That's awesome. And that right there, I can tell you as somebody that's not a firefighter, I don't go through that every year.
Right.
I don't. I probably should. And I think a lot of people should think a little bit more, think a little bit harder about if that's something that they would like to do, if they could do that. But really, the importance of this is getting checked because you are specifically exposed to all the things that cause these problems.
Yeah. Obviously the higher risk to first responders with the carcinogens and the toxins and everything that we're exposed to because of our jobs. But I mean, you can look at a ton of other industries, you know, and then, and I won't go too deep into this, but you just look at the age of the world in which we live, and there are more synthetics than there's ever been before. There's more processed foods than there's ever been before. There's more stuff that is not natural to the human body out there that we're either breathing or consuming or touching, whatever it might be, than we ever have before. And coincidentally, at the same time, you're hearing about more and more people just in the general population that have whatever cancer than ever before. Like, my dad is almost 70 years old, and when he was, you know, a young man or a teenager or whatever, the number of people that he knew or knew of with cancer was nowhere near what it is now.
Yeah.
You know, so take that information, take, you know, what you want with that information.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, the point is, it should be a primary focus as far as regular checkups and everything for any human being in today's world that is able to accomplish that. So
Absolutely. And I mean, you're going to have to fight for it. You know, if you want it, you're going to have to fight for it. But I, for one, believe that firefighters and first responders shouldn't have to fight for it. And that's where we kind of come to now.
Well, and I know we've talked a lot, and it's been good. It's been needed to provide that story and that background on Wade and who Wade was, who Wade is. I want to ask you though now, and I want you to talk about where we're tying this world of first responders and cancer and all the stuff we've talked about into the hunting and outdoor world with the project that you are now leading.
This is, and it's exploded into something really, really magical. I have a love for the outdoors. Specifically for me, I'm a waterfowler. I'm duck hunter, goose hunter, whatever it is. I just like to get outside. I like the social aspect of it. I like being able to get out there with friends or family and just make these amazing memories, because it does to me, because my wife does not eat duck meat or goose meat, so our freezer does not necessarily need to be full of that kind of meat for us to survive, because she's doing okay without it, you know. And I can try and cook it as the best I ever did, and she is still gonna have zero interest in it.
You gotta tell her it's something else.
I know. But yeah, there's stories about that too. I tricked her once into eating. I just told her I was cooking kung pao, and she came home, and I made the kung pao sauce from scratch. Just rice, and then kind of had everything seasoned, and it was really, really spicy, and I think that's why she probably didn't necessarily pay attention to the texture as much. But by the time she was done, we made a phone call to my brother, and he kind of knew what I'd been cooking, and she goes, and my brother was asking what the ingredients were. It's like, you know, soy sauce and ginger and garlic and this and that, and then Jess chimes in and she goes, and chicken, and I go, no, alligator, and she's like, wait, no, chicken. I go, no, alligator, and so Kung Paligator was born.
Kung Paligator.
And so and to this day she kicks herself, because that was like the day that because she loved it. She really enjoyed it. I think she just felt bamboozled.
Yeah, a little trickery there.
Exactly. I cannot do it with duck meat. She knows way too early whenever I start cooking that. But that being said, what I enjoy the most is getting out with my friends, and just whether it's public land or private land, it doesn't matter to me if we're we're killing ducks. It's really just about being in the outdoors.
Yeah.
And so a while back, I started seeing kind of this interesting thing happening in the duck call community where people were taking old duck calls, and they were modifying them, they were recutting them, and they were making it to where it was more, it was more suited for the sounds that we believe that ducks are listening to and attracted to. And so from that, I had this idea that I wanted to kind of send a duck call on a journey where it was going to travel around and get modified, like add this or that, or like just be a growing package. And then I started thinking, man, this could be a really cool idea if we did it to raise money, and if we did it with some celebrities in the waterfowl industry. And I started reaching out, and I reached out to really, really awesome guy. His name is Forrest Carvajal, and he runs Pond Creek Duck Calls out of Greenbrier, Arkansas. And I reached out to him, and I had actually ordered a custom call from him, but we'd kind of developed this friendship. I started relaying what my idea was, and he was like, man, there's a guy that you need to reach out to and talk to and kind of get their blessing and make sure everything was okay with the way that you're approaching this, because you may make waves and this and that. And so I did, and I reached out, and it was like, okay, this suddenly opened some doors, because it was like, let's not modify something now, let's start fresh. Let's start fresh in this with a brand new duck call, but of the highest caliber. And let's see what we can do with that and some equal quality gear, but it's missing something. And I started thinking about something that Chelsea had mentioned at Wade's funeral, and
Chelsea is Wade's wife. For folks that don't know.
And at Wade's funeral, she read a couple of different texts from that she had found in his phone, because he started journaling towards the end of his life, kind of almost secretly sometimes.
Yeah.
And she found these amazing quotes, and there was this one quote involved, and I think it was really meant for the Cannon family. It was directed at them, and it said, if you want to visit, leave the steel and concrete behind and go see the outdoors and see what God is, this beautiful thing that God has made for us. And I probably butchered a bit of it, but you understand the gist.
Yeah.
And really just kind of, because his goal was to get his family outdoors, and he really, really had started doing that. He got his parents outside. He got me and Jessica to join them, going on, countless adventures. It was like, if we would go on a family vacation, it was always a hike involved. It was always about, like, what can we do outside? And so with that, I started thinking about the journal, and started thinking about, like, how do we, like, catalog or talk about this journey that's going to go. Mm-hmm. Let's think about kind of the root of that, which is getting people journaling, and the cathartic feelings you get from journaling, just putting pen to paper. It feels really good. It's therapeutic, but it's raw.
Right.
And I wanted to capture that feeling. I wanted people to feel like they were in the blind with with others, that with these celebrities that we were getting to make these, to take this journal on a journey.
You wanted everything to go back to what it means for people to be in the outdoors, to be in waterfowl camp, to be out there in that brotherhood or that fellowship. These famous people that a lot of us might look up to in a lot of senses, but you did not want it. You don't want this to be under a spotlight for them. You want this to be its truest sense.
Yeah, because if you think about it, a lot of these outdoorsmen and women they're out there and they've got cameras following them, and everything gets,
everything's documented.
Yeah. But then like it goes back and then edited and put together, and the best version of it is what everybody sees.
Right.
And for me, like, I know what I remember from my hunts. I know what's important to me. And I know that, like, if those things that are important to me, those intrinsic little nuanced experiences, I'm going to remember something about a trip differently than you are. But if I'm writing that down, I'm showing where that emphasis is to me.
Right.
And I wanted to capture that. I wanted, because anybody can kind of take a camera and video themselves and really edit it and show you kind of the really great hunts. Not a lot of people are showing the bad hunts, and not a lot of people are showing the amount of work that goes into making this happen. And to do so, you've got to put in the legwork. You've got to go scout. You've got to know where the birds are. But like, you get out there and all of it comes together, and you either have a really great time, you have a mediocre time. But if you're having a bad time, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. A bad time, something really bad has to happen, or you're not, in my opinion, you're not thinking about it from the sense that, like, you're out there, you're just enjoying Mother Nature and getting to spend time and make these memories with some friends. Yeah. And so, kind of fast forward, I started thinking about who I wanted to get involved. And I knew immediately that the person that I spoke to that just is really got an amazing eye for detail and for the highest quality is Josh Raggio. Josh Raggio has been making duck calls for quite some time. And he makes some of the most absolutely stunning duck calls I've ever seen in my life. And he volunteered to make the duck call. And so we've got a duck call maker. We've got David Gaston and Gaston Farr are working together to make a spec goose call. We have an incredible artist making a lanyard out of leather. And then we've got this journal. This journal, we're not going to necessarily release out just yet what exotic hide this journal is, but it is beautiful. And we're going to have this entire package of kind of the highest quality gear all come together and get shipped to these different icons, these different social media personalities, these leaders that have helped kind of develop the industry to where it's at. And I mean, incredible guides, and also people that have a very, very special connection to the fire community. Because it's another thing is, even these icons, these celebrities, they've all had their experiences. A lot of them have had family members that are in the fire departments. And so a lot of them have a lot to say. A lot of them have a lot of fears about what their family members are going through. A lot of them, through conversations that I've had with them, through just about what it is that we're trying to do, it has been eye-opening to them to hear the statistics about the prevalence of cancer and cardiovascular related health problems that is so prevalent in the first responder community, especially compared to other occupations. And you guys don't think twice. You just, one of my favorite memories of Wade is, and I hope the Cannon family is okay with me sharing this, but when we finally got to have the big brother talk, and he came to me, and I don't know if you've heard this story or not.
I have not, no.
So he came to me, and we had really started to develop a friendship, and I'd gone to him and asked for his blessing to ask for Jessica's hand in marriage, and he said yes, and he did kind of leave me with a little snippet, little thought. He said, every day that I get up and I kiss Chelsea goodbye and I go to the firehouse, I'm ready to put my life on the line to go save a complete strangers. Somebody I don't know, I will throw on my bunker gear and I will go willingly and give my life to save theirs. I want you to think about what I would do for a family member.
Yeah. That's powerful.
And I was like, all right, big brother.
Yeah. I heard you.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
And so, yeah. So back to what it
yeah, so
season of stories.
Yes. So and I don't even know if at this point in the episode we've said the name yet, but I want you, we've talked about what this thing is, this package, and some of the things that it's going to entail, and kind of the idea, the concept behind the journey that this thing's going on, and how it's going to be, documented in this journal and everything. But what is the organization called, and what is the mission of the organization through the funds and the awareness that y'all are generating through this organization and through this adventure? What's the mission?
So this is just season 1, but what we're going to do is we're going to do an entire season where this travels around, and it's going to go to different celebrity, different icon, different leader, different just amazing storyteller, and it's going to make its way back to it's going to start off in Canada. It's going to come back to the United States. This will be early September. Come back to the United States, and we're going to probably try and go, to 1 or 2 different hunters or groups of people every week. And at the end of January, at the end of the regular waterfowl season, we'll make our way back. That's the goal. We have some other things that may happen that may make it to where the season lasts a little bit longer and may go into like the June and July stage. But it'll come back, and then we'll gather everything back up, and then we're going to auction off the proceeds of it to and all the we're going to auction it off, and all of the proceeds of it are going to go towards educating and funding first responder health screening.
Yeah.
health screening very similar to what it is that you've gone through. But what we're going for is for the departments that don't necessarily have the funding and the budgetary allowances that Flower Mound does.
And that's one thing that I want to drive home for folks with this who might just not have any idea on fire, like how fire departments operate, or until perhaps they listen to this episode, right? They're not familiar with all these risks that we've talked about so far. But the number is in the 70%, somewhere in there, on the number of volunteer fire departments in the United States.
Yep.
That's a huge number. You think of all these big cities or these suburbs like what our department is and everything like that, and departments that have funding or have screenings of various capacities like this for their folks. But how many departments like that are made up of civilians from the chief down that work other jobs, that live in small communities, and they're doing the exact same thing that we are. They're exposed to the exact same stuff. And this kind of thing is something that might not be at the forefront of their minds, or if it is, it's, to your point, not anywhere close to a budget item that they can support,
Exactly.
And that's huge. That's a huge gap in a healthy first responder, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to kind of piggyback off of that, you also have to think about, I mean, can we talk just a moment about the quality of the PPE that you get
Absolutely.
to utilize versus the quality of the PPE that you get to utilize is probably a little bit better than some of these volunteer departments get to use.
No, and to that point exactly, it's not knocking or discrediting these volunteer departments, because I personally have worked for a couple of different volunteer departments in the past, and one was very, neither one, let me start by saying neither one any better or worse than the other one.
Yeah.
One department had some guys on staff that were really great about writing grants and getting funding for various things that you would not normally see in a volunteer fire department, for example. And the other fire department had a much smaller budget than that. And because of that, bunker gear, equipment, and all that kind of stuff, you had to make it last longer. So I'm a career fireman for a full-time fire department, for example. I have 2 sets of bunker gear, and every 5 years, like, they're on a rotation. Every 5 years, that bunker gear leaves me and goes into like the reserve status for the department. So whenever we hire somebody new, they get issued a hand-me-down set of bunker gear until the stuff that's custom fit for them comes in, basically, which is just a few weeks' time.
Yep.
And then they have their own stuff. And then every set of gear I have is on a 5-year timeline with me, and then it spends 5 years in the reserve, and then it's done. It's decommissioned at that point. And there's a lot of departments out there that don't have that luxury or that funding to do that, and so one guy could potentially be working with a set of bunker gear that's 10 or 15 years old.
Yeah.
And how many fires has that gear seen by then? How many times has that gear been or hasn't been washed when it should have been at that point in time? Stuff breaks down and wears down over time, and then the gear itself, if not properly cared for, just aging longer than its projected lifetime is, then you're just looking at it not providing the protection that a brand new set would obviously provide.
Yeah.
So all those factors weigh in with a department that just simply doesn't have a budget that some of these larger cities or suburb cities might have.
Yeah.
So
just one season is like, we're hoping to raise as much money as we can with season 1.
Absolutely.
But that's not going to do it. So what we're doing is we're working on season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, moving on. And so season 1 is what I know, which is waterfowl. But what that's done is like seeing kind of where this is going, and like the feeling that people are getting from just the idea of this and the knowledge of where it's going has kind of started opening up. Actually, it has opened up a lot of other channels in fishing in the turkey hunting community. Something that's near and dear to you, which is archery and big game. Also, we've opened up opportunities through friends of Wade of the possibility of trying to send this on a snowboarding and skiing journey. And this would be additional journals. It's going to be a different journal each season. But through that, we're also going to be launching a number of other different fundraisers to where we can keep bringing money in, to where we can help get the screening out there to those that can't get it.
Yeah. No, it is not you're not starting something that's just a one-off. Let's go through waterfowl season, and whatever money we raise, we'll donate it or give it in whatever means we determine, whatever it might be. No, you are clearly passionate and have a mission to continue this thing past just what you've referred to as Season of Stories, season 1. As you mentioned, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Keep
it on going. And man, if that's your mentality and your mission, the possibilities are endless, especially in the hunting and outdoors.
And that's something that has also kind of been eye-opening, is how many outdoorsmen, because it at first it seemed like there weren't as many that would actually journal. A lot of them were journaling just specifically to write the conditions down, kind of what the wind's like in this location, the what the weather is like, what the migration is like, or even in kind of your realm, you're probably looking at cameras, you're looking at a whole bunch of other criteria that you're trying to remember all of those little details that make it to where you can have the best possible hunt.
Right.
And that is something that's really common. But writing down your favorite memories, writing down, I utilize, for instance, we have a number of people that are going to be going on the hunt with our gear, that it's going to be a really meaningful hunt to them, because it's going to be with really, really special people to them. People that, it's a grandfather and his grandson. It's going to be, 2 women hunters. It's going to be, 2 up and coming world champion duck call makers and duck callers. It's going to be people that have stories to tell.
Yeah.
And people that haven't necessarily told their story in this type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find that, to me, I find that fascinating. I maybe I'm not the only person, but I would hope that I'm not the only person.
I don't think you are, man.
Where you think that you think about, oh, so and so they go out and they're gonna put in the same amount of time and effort, because I don't know a whole lot of people that have the wherewithal to where they just go on successful hunts all the time. You have to put in the work.
Absolutely.
You have to put in the work. If you don't put in the work, then you're going to find out here pretty quick that you're either lucky or you're lazy.
Yep. That's a good way to put it.
Because there's a lot of people that get by for a year lucky, but there's not many people that get by 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
You find out real quick, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I've been lazy. If I really want to do this, then I'm going to have to go out there and I'm going to have to put some blood, sweat, and tears into this.
Yeah.
Then there's people that have been doing it for decades, and they've got equally impressive stories to tell. And because the same thing happens year after year after year, and they remember these things. But something new is going to happen on every hunt. A memory that they're going to remember that is touching to them,
Yeah.
funny to them, embarrassing. I, for one, I have a group of buddies of mine, and the beginning of the season, we'll say that there's always the hopes that somebody's going to fall into the water and fill their waders, and it's always me. It's always me. And it's always me. And luckily, last year it happened. The 2 or 3 times it happened to me last year. It happened early season, and I didn't freeze my butt off or anything.
Yeah, it wasn't too cold just yet.
Yeah. It was but it makes for, a great story to tell your buddies. It's like, oh, each time I go out hunting with Gray, it's like, is he gonna fall? Is he gonna fall?
Yeah. When's Gray going in the water? Come on now.
Exactly. But yeah, I'm not the only one that happens to. There's all of these people. They put their boots on, they put their waders on, just like we do.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to capture. And so that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
September 1st is when our first storyteller, Joey D'Amico, will be taking the package. And then it will be making its way back into the States. And it's going to be kind of crisscrossing the country. It's going to go down to the Gulf. It's going to go East Coast, West Coast. It's going to do definitely some Arkansas, Missouri, some panhandle of Texas hunts.
That's awesome.
We have some incredible storytellers lined up, and the list is growing. Everybody we reach out to is learning about us, and they're learning kind of the momentum that we're gaining, and it's taken some time to gain the trust of a lot of people, because we just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But a lot of people really, really do share this same passion that we need to get our first responders regularly checked, and there shouldn't be any reason why they can't get checked.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Shouldn't be age limitations. It shouldn't be familial limitations. If you're exposed to an environment that is conducive to giving people cancer, then you should be given screening.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. And the hope, and I believe it'll happen, as we've said through this project, is that's going to be a realistic thing that can happen to more and more people, thanks to Season of Stories.
Yes.
And I want to talk before we conclude our conversation too. I want to talk about the name itself, because the season and the stories, I think our listeners can see how that's applicable. Mm-hmm. But if the initials are S.O.S,
we're helping.
Yeah. I love it. It
was, if anybody has had to create anything, create a business, just create anything, you have this idea and you want to convey it, and then like over and over and over again, you're like, oh, we're close. But then like we saw it, and I knew I wanted it to be a meaningful monogram that actually, first and foremost, I didn't want the monogram to be like ASS,
Right.
And so I was like really cognizant of that. And then I started thinking, I was like, what monogram is the most recognizable monogram out there for help and S.O.S?
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that we wanted to do volumes. We wanted this. It was really quick that we realized that we wanted this to keep going and going and going to where we could try and help as many people as possible. And so it was, okay, so there's going to be seasons, or there's going to be versions. We're going to be telling stories. Season of Stories.
Yeah.
And it just worked.
Yeah.
And I think that monogram right there is powerful for a lot of reasons. I mean, whether it's a pilot, whether it's a boat captain, a veteran.
The layman.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows what it means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is what we're trying to do, is to be able to give help where it's needed in a way that isn't really recognized just yet.
Yeah. Well, man, it is an honorable project for sure, and I'm happy to be on the journey with you. And
let's talk about that a little bit.
We don't have to talk about that a little bit. No,
okay.
I'm happy to be a part of it, and you know, for anybody tuning in, you know, you asked me to help out in you know, some regard to where I have some specific talents and knowledge and everything, and of course the answer is yes, because this like I said, this is two worlds that I'm equally as passionate about, and a perfect bridge between the two for a perfect cause.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If there's anything that I would say most importantly, what we want to do is we want to raise awareness that people just need to start fighting to get regular health screening.
Yeah.
It is vital. If you are in an environment like first responders like yourself are in, you need to fight to get any and all screening that you can get, because it's going to save your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. Yeah, and if this provides help to, I know it'll do much more, but if it provides help to one person, man, in my mind, it's worth it, you know.
And again, as I was saying earlier, we want to educate, and we want to help provide screenings, and we're working on getting a partnership to be able to make that happen.
Yeah.
And as that's still kind of happening, we can't really kind of go into too many details about that. But what we do want to do is we want to get the word out. You can follow us on social media. We have a website that is under construction right now. It should be available very, very soon. And that is seasonofstories.org. You'll have to forgive me. We have some anxious dogs that want to come inside.
I can hear them sitting in the room. I'm listening on the headphones. I haven't picked them up on here.
Thump.
Maybe if y'all hear a thump or a bark, that's
like what, that right there.
Yeah, y'all for sure heard that one. That's okay. We've had plenty of dogs show up unannounced on our podcast.
Absolutely.
Almost 200 episodes. So.
And congratulations for that.
Yeah, coming up, man. I'm excited. I not to get off topic, but I got something special in store for episode 200, and I'm looking forward to our listeners getting to hear it. So
I'm looking forward to hearing it myself.
Yeah, it'll be cool. But I wanted to share this with you. I hadn't shared this with you yet. Mm-hmm. Wade passed October 1st of 2022, and
22.
22.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
He so, you know, I've said a couple times now, the bridge between my two worlds, for example, mm-hmm. that this project kind of is. And I find it unique, again, just thinking back. And I don't know that I would chalk it up to coincidence necessarily. I don't know what I'd chalk it up to. But, like, for folks that have been following along with Fall Obsession for the last couple years, I'll say, I'm sure that they remember there's a pretty popular photograph of myself sitting behind a massive wild boar that I shot with my bow in Texas, mm-hmm. on our Texas dirt property, and biggest wild hog that I've ever killed in my life, and with a bow on top of that. And just what's unique to me that I've thought about recently, since we've had all these conversations and this mm-hmm. thing's gained momentum, is that I killed that pig on October 1st of 2022. And I can remember I walked up on that pig, I realized how big it was, and I got in the truck to go get my dad because it was too big for me to drag by myself. And while I was in the truck is when a notification got sent out to our whole department about Wade. So it was a very somber night out there in the deer woods. And the next morning was the perfect morning. I didn't kill anything, but it was... I've talked on our show about how I will take, like, my happy place, for example, is sitting in my tree during hunting season, sitting in my tree stand on a cool, crisp morning, sun coming up through the trees, dew on the ground, just being there when the woods come to life. That's like, I will go there before I go anywhere else. That's the first place. And that next morning was one of those mornings. And I never, like, for me, and I know there were people who were a lot closer to Wade, certainly family, obviously, that was a very somber time for. But I don't know, for me, I needed that morning, right? That, because a friend of mine, a brother, had passed. Yeah. And I've never tied it all together necessarily more than I have since we've been talking about this project, because I've been thinking back to that hunting trip a lot, just since we've been talking, and it's like, man, that wasn't just a coincidence, that morning was meant to be one of those mornings, and I'm grateful for that. I hadn't shared that with you, but
I appreciate it.
That's where I was when Wade went to be with the Lord. So
yeah,
but not to get all somber on us here on the podcast, but man, what else do you want to share about what you're working on, or anything, or is there anything that we've missed, or that you want to be sure that our folks tuning in know about?
And I just know that this is important, that because earlier
I do it all the time.
Earlier, when we were talking, you were talking about Wade's fight, and I was like, well, which one,
Right.
And I think Wade fought two fights. Wade fought cancer itself, which we're finding that we're not going to beat cancer per se.
Right.
But what we can do is offer help in getting people to find cancer sooner. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to just wait until those very specific requirements are there that say that you can go get checked now, that's just making it to where the average, like the average person that would find those things is going to find it now.
Right.
What if you are in the minority that is under that age, right, under that threshold? I mean, in particular, I just want to really, really express how important it is to get screening, especially, again, first responders. I just want to make sure that if anything, the message that it is that important is understood. And that was what Wade wanted, and that was his other fight, was to get people screened, to check their rear.
Yeah.
And so, that's what we're going to do. If I am just a duck hunter that was very, very blessed to know Wade. And I don't know much about what it is that I'm doing, but I know that I'm learning day in and day out. I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
You have been a massive amount of help. Gaston has been a massive amount of help.
Yeah.
A lot of people that have just answered the phone to talk about this, to be able to kind of work through and come up with some ideas and brainstorm on this, have just been a massive amount of help. But we need help as far as finding people that know about nonprofits, people that have done that share our passion. We hope you share our passion for the outdoors. We hope that you share our passion for getting people checked. But we just need people that know more about this than we do so that we can be successful at it. We just want to fund as many firefighter screenings as possible.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. This is my call to anybody watching, listening, whatever the case might be. Y'all can support this in more ways than y'all might realize. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if there is somebody out there that has a specific talent mm-hmm. that you guys might think would be helpful to this project, please reach out. If you are plugged in with an organization in the hunting industry or want to donate funds, whatever it might be, this isn't an ask for money by any means, but we do need money. But if that's what you find you're able to do, then please reach out. If you don't feel like you're plugged, if you don't have an organization in the hunting industry that can help out, if you don't have funds that you feel like can help out, sharing the Season of Stories pages, the website, sharing this podcast, mm-hmm. that's how you help out. Because for all anybody tuning in might realize, you share this podcast on your own personal Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is, somebody else tunes in that this is relevant to, that can help, or that goes and gets screened because of it. Mm-hmm. That's the mission. That's how everybody supports each other. That's how everybody helps through this and joins together, big and small. And so that's my call to anybody tuning in, is that if nothing else, just click the like and share button on this episode. That is the absolute least you can do. It takes 2 seconds, and it could literally save a life. Mm-hmm. It literally could.
Absolutely, because there are people out there that don't realize that screening is available.
Yeah.
And they may have been dealing with symptoms that they knew were not quite right.
Right.
And if this reaches them and touches them and convinces them that they should go get checked, because that's a big fear too, is also going to get checked. Because mm-hmm. what if you do find something out?
Exactly.
If you find out that you're healthy, that's the best thing that you can find out. But if you find out that you are catching something earlier on, and you can fight it now,
mm-hmm. that's the difference maker right there. Yep. That changes a life.
Yep.
Exactly. Great. Tell everybody one more time how they can find y'all. I know you mentioned it earlier, but once more.
So we've got seasonofstories.org. That should be, and that's seasonofstories.org, and that should be coming out in the coming week or so. We also have Season of Stories on Instagram, and then we are building more of a base on Facebook as well. Mm-hmm. We're open to exploring all options of being able to get the word out on this, and we'll listen to all options too. We just want to make sure that the message gets out and that we can get people checked.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the show to share all this.
I appreciate everything that you have done.
Man, like I said, it's my pleasure. Like this is a good cause and an honorable cause, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So
thank you.
Yeah. For those tuning in, appreciate y'all listening and making it to the end. Thank y'all. As we've already mentioned, share this episode. Get it out there. Get it out there to the masses. Make it Make it the most downloaded podcast episode we've ever had. I would love for it to be that, but that only happens with you guys spreading the word. Hit up the social medias, catch the shows on Carbon TV, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm back with y'all again next week for another podcast. Catch you then.